Hello today and welcome Joshna. Speaking with Joshna, who is from India. Joshna, you are the 2003 British Junior Under-17s champion. You are the 2005 British Junior Under-19s champion. You are 2 times Asian Junior Under-19s champion, winning that at the age of 17 and 19. You hold 18 Indian national titles. You are a Commonwealth Games gold medalist, winning the women's doubles in 2014, and a Commonwealth Games silver medalist in the women's doubles in 2018. Your highest world ranking is number 10, and your currently world ranking is number 11. So congratulations on your achievements so far in your career, and welcome, and thank you for joining me here today at Squash Alchemy.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for all those nice words about me.
Yeah, I mean, a pretty amazing career so far. And
thank you.
I think we'd like to kick it off really with how you started playing squash, what age you were, and why squash.
Well, I started around 8 to 9. My dad is a player himself, so I would, tag along with him to the Madras Cricket Club. It's very famous for a lot of international cricket matches. And so they had a very nice squash facility there, and just hanging around the club, kids my age group, we would just run into court anytime a court was free and knock about, and when it was full we would run away to some other part of the club and then come back again. So that was pretty much all my evenings for a very long time. And I think when I was quite young, I decided squash was going to be something I was going to pursue pretty seriously. I think partly was because I didn't want to go to school. I thought it was a perfect way to just tell my parents I found my calling and my career. But obviously that didn't happen, but the squash happened. And so that's where it all started for me.
Okay, and what level did your dad play at?
So he was a state level player and a club level player, and he was fairly good, and he was my coach for a very, very long time.
Okay, so when you say you started at a very young age, when did you really start getting coaching and sort of starting to do a little bit of, training in regards to, a bit of fitness work and technical work and court work?
So like from the time I was really probably 10 years old, like I said, I was working with my dad, but it was not very structured, like I would go with him and we would get on court, but it was not obviously as planned as it is, today, or what the kids have access to today. Back then, squash was not very well known, in India as well as in Chennai. So we were really learning, bit by bit, about tournaments, what we needed to do on court, and just really figuring out the whole situation. And it was good because at least I played a bunch of junior tournaments, so that gave me a lot of exposure. I started pretty young. I played the Singapore Junior Open when I was 11 years old, and all the major Asian tournaments, Asian junior tournaments, like the Malaysian juniors, and then obviously the British is the best junior tournament in the world, so I would go for that as well. And you just really see where you stand and what you need to improve on. And for me, I think the first time I went abroad to train was I was 15, and I went to train with the head coach at Harvard University at the time. So it's just experimenting as much as you can, like I was training in Amsterdam for a little bit. I was training in Egypt for a little bit. But I'm based in Bristol, under Hadrian Stiff, and I'm quite happy there. And he's played a huge part in my game today.
Okay, great. So as you mentioned, you traveled a lot as a junior playing international events. Was that due to there wasn't many players and tournaments in India, so you had to travel away?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there were a bunch of juniors, that I could play and train with and all of that, but just that high level of, coaching quality, I didn't have access to that, for the first few years of me playing squash in the junior tour, And after that, the federation, brought in, Major Maniam, who came in for a very long time and, set up the system. And, we had more structured training, at the academy, at the Indian Squash Academy. So definitely got a lot better post 15, 16, when I was 15, 16.
Yeah. All right. That must have been nice having the national body, having an academy based in India and being able to train, being based at home a little bit more.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, especially having it in Chennai, which is like literally a 5 minute drive for
Wow.
me, because a lot of other players from around the country had to move to Chennai because Chennai was the hub. I mean, it still is the hub for squash, but just having something as nice as the academy there with your own courts, fitness trainers, coaches, being able to play against the other players around the country. So I definitely benefited a lot.
Yeah, nice. So when players do come interstate or to come based in Chennai, do they get accommodation as provided with their scholarship?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the players were supported, by the federation. They were there's a facility to stay within the academy as well. So a lot of the boys who moved from around the country, they came, they did schooling and college in Chennai, and they lived at the academy. They trained with all of us, and yeah, it was I mean, obviously, a lot of them have gone abroad to America to study, and they continue to work there and all of that. But a few years back, there was a huge group of boys.
Yeah, nice. You mentioned you did some training in Egypt and in Amsterdam. Was that through your
Yeah.
junior career or in your pro career?
So when Amsterdam was more my junior career, when Nicole and Liz and all of them were there, and a big group of girls were there as well, training. So that was way back. I'm not going to say which year because it was so far back. But Egypt was a little bit more recent, probably in 2016. We had our federation had an Egyptian coach as one of the coaches, and so we obviously had access to go train there and use their facilities and all of that. So that was also pretty fun.
Okay. Being in different countries and training from different cultures, is it extremely different from country to country?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, in England, it's more about the structure and, constructing your rallies and all of that. And in Egypt, it was like straight up, let's just go for winners from anywhere,
Yeah.
so they're far more attacking. And, like at the same time, they still have a very solid foundation on court, and, they're physically very strong. And yeah, I think the age group of girls coming up and doing and playing really good squash is like from 11, 12, 13,
Yeah.
so it's a good crop there that you can, and there's so many players in Egypt, to train with. And where I am now in England is a mix of both, because you have Egyptians coming there to train, and then you have the English side of the whole thing, and so there's a big variety of players for me in Bristol right now. So I really get a good group of players to train with.
Yeah, fantastic. So you turned pro in 2003. Was this an easy decision to turn pro? I mean, you've already mentioned that you knew you were going to be a squash player from such a young age. So was it just an easy progression to turn pro and join the PSA?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I was 10, I decided this was going to be, my career, and I was not going to be good at anything else and I actually went pro at 17, but that was probably my first couple of tournaments, but I didn't really go proper pro till I got out of the juniors, because I was still kind of focused on playing the juniors a little bit more. And so I really went pro by 19, 20. And yeah, it was a total shark's world out there, because, coming in from the juniors to the seniors was a huge change for me, because I didn't really play that many professional tournaments as a junior. And but yeah, it was a huge learning experience of where I stand and what I need to do to get up there.
Yeah, awesome. And did your training change dramatically from juniors to then turning pro?
Yeah, for sure. As a junior, I was a little bit laid back. I depended on my skill a lot more to get me through matches, and I think you can do that as a junior. But when you get into the seniors, you have to, get a lot more physical. You got to really focus on being strong on court as well as mentally and as well as skillfully. Because today the girls out there are, like I said, they're physically very strong. They're very good court-wise as well. So you have to be able to develop every area of your game. And that is something I started working on extra when I got into the seniors, was to just be really physically strong as well.
Okay. What's getting in a little bit more depth on what Joshna's week-to-week training would consist of? Would you be able to just walk us through what you do each week?
So I kind of so I have my fitness trainer as a lady called Beth. She lives in Bristol, and so she's been designing my program for the last few years since I moved and trained in Bristol. And so we kind of do, like, I do about 5 weight sessions a week. I try and do about 6 fitness sessions a day. I mean, in the week, sorry, like almost one a day. And then yeah, with the squash as well, I play in the mornings and in the evening. Do the 5 weight sessions, the 6 fitness sessions, and try and include the squash and the match play and the routines, and getting on court with the coach a few times a week. So all of that makes up my week.
Well, it's a big week, yeah. The fitness work, is it mainly done stuff on the track, or is it on court, or is it a mixture of both?
It's a mixture of both. I do a lot of running. I feel like that has really helped me, get fitter on court. And I try and do a lot of the ghosting as well. And obviously as the weight program, just to make sure like my joints are okay and, it's able to sustain on court. So all of that.
So is that, when you say 5 strength sessions a week, do you try and maintain that during tournaments, or does it change when you're away playing tournaments?
Well, I just probably bring down the number of sets. Like I think when you have more time, you can do more reps and more sets, so that it helps you as well. But obviously, when you're in between competition, or like you have a few days in between to get ready for the next one, for me, I try and just bring down the load a little bit, and maybe do 1 or 2 sets in supposed to 3 to 4 sets. Just like I said, like just do more lighter weights, and things like that, more quick work, like a lot of quick movement, and just try and play more matches.
Yeah, okay, yep. So wanting to talk a little bit about, I guess, the tour. And I mean, you're sitting at 11 in the world now. So between, obviously when you go from 100 to 50 in the world, and then 50 to 20, and then 20 to 10, and then reaching up, can you talk a little bit about how different each level of play is, from, playing all the people depending on levels and the standard and competition and whatnot?
I think a few years back, there would have been a little bit of a difference between, say, being in the top 50 or top 30, and then, post that. But I personally think that the tour has become so solid. The top 50 players, and of course the top 10 is a special place to be in, and those girls, are super consistent and, playing some unbelievable squash. But I think outside the top 10 till about top 50 is a very, very strong crew as well. And today, when you go into any tournament from round 1, you cannot take anybody for granted. You cannot just assume that, hey, I'll get through this round and, I'll try and match my seeding and stuff like that. Like, there are a lot of upsets happening because the quality has improved. The girls have gotten a lot better. And yeah, I think it's very tough competition right now.
Yeah, it's exciting I think for the women's sport at the moment. Like you said, it's just such tough competition. So to separate really into that top 10, is it mainly just consistency that sort of separate the girls in the top 10?
Yeah, I think they're very consistent. Even if they're not at their best, they know how to win matches. They know how to hang in there. Like, they're not playing their best squash all the time. And I mean, when they do, of course, they're, winning championships, but they also know how to get through matches by not being 100%, by, just grinding it out. And I think they do that a lot better than, someone outside the top 20, top 15.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So obviously you won the women's doubles in 2014. So you got a gold medal, and this was the first gold medal for India to ever win a medal at all in squash. How was the reaction from the public back home in India?
Just to give you a bit of a background, like, as you're aware, squash is not in the Olympics, so for us, our major events really are the Commonwealth Games and the Asian Games. Mm-hmm. So, and squash is like well known in India, but, like, we've not got that kind of support, like, say, an Olympic sport, usually gets. Mm-hmm. So for us, when we actually won that medal, it was a huge boost for us, to be able to put squash up there in our country as a sport that's winning big medals for the country, and the amount of love and support and the adulation Deepika and me got after that was just mind blowing,
Wow.
and since then, especially from our state government, central government, we were rewarded very well. We were, our efforts were appreciated. And yeah, and since then we've been getting a lot of support from the government, to play tournaments. And basically that medal changed a lot of things for us, like squash wise.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to know that, you were behind that to accomplish that medal and to be able to change a lot of the situation of squash in India. So well done. And yeah,
Thank
that's a
you.
great movement there.
Thank
Um,
you.
so obviously, when we get back to playing back on tour, when the squash gets back on the tournaments are starting again, what's next for Joshna, and what's your goals setting forward for the future?
Wow, it's almost, I've not really even thought of competing yet. It's like, it's just, this whole time has been so surreal. Like, it's almost like everyone's obviously fighting for survival now. So to think of competing is just, it's not crossed my mind, as much. But yeah, I mean, when I think of what's going to be the first tournament back, and when am I going to start training, I mean, properly, like, where we have access to all our facilities and all of that. And yeah, for me, I'm just I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also trying to take one step at a time, like just try and get back into the routine a little bit, because uh obviously, even for you, I'm sure, like, everyone's routine is just helter skelter, or I don't sleep on time, I wake up when I want, like, the whole discipline has gone out the window. So I think for me, my first step would just be to get that routine back of, like, you're training 2-3 times a day, you're like waking up early, like, just things like that. And yeah, I mean, like, hopefully when the tour gets better, when the world is healthier and safer, um yeah, I hope to, do some good work on tour.
Yeah, nice. Are you planning to compete in the next Commonwealth Games?
Oh yeah, that's definitely the goal. In fact, that was what was keeping me going, to compete in the next Commonwealth and the next Asian Games. I definitely believe I have a few good years of squash left in me, and I just want to give it my all.
Yeah, I mean, that's really cool. I mean, I retired sort of in my early 30s, and I know at the end of my career, I was just mentally and physically exhausted and had enough. So to be able to keep playing and continue on, how do you keep focus and motivation there?
Like you said, I mean, it's tough, it's brutal. You're traveling away from home. I think for you it was probably harder because you were flying all the way from Australia, I presume, and those are long flights. The flight itself can really be tough, and yeah, and then at the same time, it's not easy because you're in a hotel room alone. You're, like, the squash players really, like, we actually do literally everything on our own. We don't travel with an entourage. Having access to a physio is a luxury. So I really think that we should get a lot more credit, for the way that we compete in our sport, and give it our best every single day. And I mean, yeah, it's but at the end of the day, it depends what your goals are. Sometimes you just got to push through, and like you said, when you're not feeling it, you feel like this is it. Then I guess that's the time you realize, like, maybe I should take a different path in life. But for me, like, right now, I still feel, like I said, like, I feel like I have more to give, even though there are times I think, is this the time I should call it a day? Like, have I done enough? And then there's just something inside me that says, no, there's still a little bit more, like, we can keep going. And when that feeling is still there, then you still got to go back, train harder, work harder, have a good team around you that's going to, really give you good information about, where you need to go and how you need to get there. And fortunately, I have a very good team with me that helps me every time I come into a spot where I'm a bit lost and I'm not sure what to do. And then, yeah, just go back to training, that really helps.
Yeah, it must be nice to still have that burning desire to be able to compete, and knowing that
Yeah.
you haven't come to your full potential. So go for it. And yeah, that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
So my last question I'd like to finish with is, through all your experiences and knowledge that you've gained so far with your career, what advice would you give to a junior that's starting? I mean, not for someone who's just not even wanting to turn pro, but just wanting to take on squash as their main sport and really try and get as much out of squash for themselves. What advice would you give them?
I think from my experiences, I've realized that it's so important to have a good coach, to have a good fitness trainer, to have someone help you with your diet. I mean, I understand these things can be quite expensive, but in your local area, if you can identify someone who's, willing to help you, I think that can really give you some purpose and, direction. I think it's also important to make sure you still have education going on, because in our world, everything is so uncertain, and especially in times like now, when you don't have the game to fall back on, you'll always have your education to fall back on, whether you get injured, whether you realize squash is not your calling. I think it's very important to have that degree behind you to give you options in life to, make a career for yourself. And and the last thing would be to work really hard and never give up no matter how hard it gets.
Yeah, that's some great advice there. Thank you. Just to go back on, you talked about nutrition. Did you get a lot of advice through seeing a sports dietitian through your career?
Yeah, a few years back, once I hit 30, I just happened to, decide that, maybe I should take a look at my food. I think as athletes, we know, okay, we need to eat this before a tournament, before a match, or this after training and all of that. But really the information a professional nutritionist can give you, especially if they're very sports specific, can really make all that difference, whether you're recovering in time after training, you're recovering in time for your next match when you've had a hard one the day before. Just little bits of bobs of foods you can eat, how many liters of water you need to be drinking, just monitoring things like that, your food supplements that can, make all that difference in feeling fresh after a hard day. Yeah. So that for me made a lot of difference, and as you get older, there's a lot more wear and tear, on the body, and just being able to train hard, but not killing yourself to a point where you're fatigued and you're not able to, give your best. And I think just to get the best out of the athlete that you can be, I think a dietitian is very important.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Joshna. Thanks for your time today, and thanks for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. Hopefully, yeah. I mean, these interviews are all built to, if we can help one junior or one person through squash, through a bit of information that's gained through all of our experiences, then that's what they're here for. So thank you.
Thank you. I wish you all the very best, and I hope to see some champions from your academy.
All right.
I'm sure they're in great hands.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.